As a young citizen of India, armed with technology, knowledge, and love for my nation, with a vision of transforming India into a developed nation, I'm joining Shobhit University. What about you?
Very good morning to all the participants from India and abroad. Shobhit Institute of Engineering and Technology, Meerut, deemed to be university, and its centers of excellence, Center for Informatics Development Solutions and Applications, CIDSA, and Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Application, CITSA, in association with African Asian Rural Development Organization, ORDO, New Delhi, organized this weekly international webinar series on open source digital technologies towards self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, 3rd September 2021. On behalf of the Honorable Chancellor, His Excellency the Secretary General ORDO, Honorable Vice Chancellor, the faculty members of the university, and on my behalf, and as Professor Emeritus and and Chairman of the Centers of Excellence, Center for Agricultural Informatics and E-Governance Research Studies, Center for Agribusiness and Disaster Management Studies, and Center for Informatics Development Solutions and Application, and Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Application, and Center for Health Informatics and Computing. Welcome our guest speakers of today's webinar, Shri Anil Prakash, Director General, SATCOM Industries Association, India, New Delhi. And also his colleague, Shri Rajiv Gupta, Senior Director, Technology Policy, SATCOM Industries Association. Today's topic is on space startups, connecting to international markets with emerging business model. I wish to inform the participants and the guest speakers that under this international webinar series, these two centers of excellence, Center for Informatics Development Solutions and Application and Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Application, have organized 41 lectures so far. Open technologies to provision simple and economical IT infrastructure, a roadmap for students using free and open source software and reaching goals of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Open source software and industrial IoTs for SMEs. Free and open source software adoptions and business models. Open data platform for smart digital government. Technology imperatives, make in India for self-reliance. Edge artificial intelligence. Data governance for self-reliant India. Digital India transforming governance and society. India's email service, citizen at mail.com in 22 constitutionally recognized languages. Ecosystem architecture for digital transformation. Education system, cyber critical infrastructure. Seizing opportunities in open innovation and value creation network in the digital world for self-reliant economy. Ensuring food safety and compliance through technology. Digital India, urgent need for semiconductor manufacturing in India. Technology investment in agriculture value chain, role of foreign direct investments. Entrepreneurship and skill development, AI design pathways. The rise of platform economy, revisiting value chain governance. Era of automation, industrial robotics, and Industry 4.0. Indo-German perspective of technology transfer, skill gap analysis and opportunities. Role of artificial intelligence in healthcare, current developments in diagnosis and vaccine research. Digital agri-tech and industry perspective and agri-startups perspective. Health informatics network value chain, e-health system and beyond. Leveraging emerging technologies for ensuring transparent and traceable agri and food supply chains. Unleash the power of citizen development for enterprise software development. E-governance models towards sustained quality service to citizens backed up by technology. Indian MSMEs to adopt Industry 4.0 technology capabilities. Urgent need for mentorship and accelerator program. Building public digital platform using microservices and API. Health informatics network value chain, early childhood development and learning. Health informatics network value chain, clinical AI, interface between machine learning and health informatics. Health informatics network value chain, importance of social medicine and community health. Gravity filter, G filter, a simple low-cost solutions to the drinking water treatment in rural India. Open source GovTech startups empowering growth with automation. Digital transformation in small enterprises and small businesses of India, challenges and opportunities. National Digital Twine Program, need for a robust geospatial infrastructure. Industry 4.0 in MSMEs, benefits of indigenously developed CollabCAD from National Informatics Center. Mass serialization and anti-counterfeiting solutions to fight illicit trade. Cybersecurity, risks, challenges and solutions, intelligence approach to reduce cyber risk. New Internet IPv6 root server toward Atmanirbhar Connected Bharat. India startup, reflections and possible policy interventions needed for scaling up to Gram Panchayat. Blockchain and crypto for digital assets platform, pathways for global trade. Robot as a service, leverage technology to solve enterprise challenges. Today is the 42nd edition of this very important webinar series. We'll have the talk by our guest speakers, Shri Anil Prakash, Director General, and Mr. Rajiv Gupta, Senior Technical Director, Senior Director, Technology and Policy, SATCOM Industries Association, New Delhi, on the topic, space startups connecting to international markets and with emerging business models. Dear participants, you look to the keywords of this topic: space startups, international markets, and business models. Three important, keywords: business models, international markets, space startups, how they should be connected. Let me talk about that Atmanirbhar Bharat, the road ahead. This is the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, of making India self-reliant, rested on 5 I's: intent, inclusion, investment, infrastructure, and innovation. And based on 5 pillars: economy, quantum jump; infrastructure, one that represents modern India; system, 21st century technology driven; vibrant demography, source of energy and self-reliant India; and demand, whereby the strength of our demand and supply chain should be utilized to full capacity. This was announced on 15th May 2020 by the central government. Vocal for local to make it global, a demand-based, ecosystems which is self-producing and self-consuming. Make in India, make for India, and make for global. Intellectual property rights, designed in India, design hub of the world, is the need of the hour. Aim to make India the design hub of world. There exists a national IPR policy for creative India and innovative India. Intellectual property is the key for success of Startup India, Make in India, and Design India. Building the innovation engine through design thinking is which has 3 levels of innovation: product / service level, business level, and at to management level. Without building an integrated innovation system, all innovation efforts are bound to meet with failure or partial success. Key takeaways on this innovation engine is that business model framework, management innovation network, design thinking framework, 3C framework for integrated innovation, and the innovation of engines, the concept of platform, and building a platform-based business model through open innovation framework, building a knowledge-based economy and a digitally empowered society. This is what is being envisioned under Digital India program to transform India, into a knowledge-based economy and a digitally empowered society. On 20th February 2019, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology published a report titled India's $1 trillion Economy, Digital Opportunity, in collaboration with McKinsey and Company. The report identified about 30 digital themes, if scaled up nationally, can accelerate India's progress in 9 key areas. Digital world. It is the rise of platform economy is emerging. We need a digital ecosystems. Digital transformation technology includes cloud computing, mobile phones, IoT platforms, social media, GPS, advanced human-computer interaction, user data collection, analysis of big data and advanced algorithm, augmented reality, smart sensors, 3D printing, authentications, and infusion detection. Space tech industries. India, a country home to great minds, has made its presence felt in the space among superpowers such as United States of America, Russia, and China. Indian Space Research Organization and the Department of Space continue to remain dominant in the national space sector, having launched more than 100 domestic and more than 300 foreign satellites for 33 countries, while private firms have gradually been gaining ground. India will reach new heights as the country's indigenous space agency, ISRO, has now taken the space tech startups under its arm to guide, encourage, and even collaborate with them. India is developing and evolving by making a huge advancement in space tech industry. With all those innovations, they are attracting more and more investors' attention. On the current situation of India in the global space market, the government body Indian Space Research Organization has asked private vendors to actively take part in a space mission and utilize the resources in the country. After missions like Mangalyaan, SSLV, PSLV, Chandrayaan, and more, India is getting more focused on the aerospace sector to be listed in top space tech nations in the world. India has opened its space program to private sector last year, hoping to encourage local firms to enter the burgeoning market for small satellite launches. In all, there are over 24 space tech companies in India developing satellites, rockets, engines, propulsion systems, communication solutions, and other space tech related work. A range of initiatives to deregulate the private space sector were introduced by Narendra Modi's cabinet in June 2020. And then Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center in Space was established by incubating technology into private firms known as non-government private entities. The draft National Space Transportation Policy 2020 allows local private space technology companies to build and launch and lease launch pads for the purpose of launching their rockets into space. The newly drafted policy seems to be quite promising and provides a big window of opportunity for Indian startups. Indian space startup Agnikul Cosmos has become the world's first company to successfully test a fully 3D printed rocket engine, Agnilet. It only takes 4 days to produce and can carry payloads up to 100 kilos into low Earth orbit. Rocket engines are tough to build, but it is done in India. ISRO has set up 3 space technology center incubation center at the National Institute of Technology in Tiruchirappalli, Jalandhar, and Agartala. 3 more are in progress. Department of Space has collaborated with Atal Mission Innovation Mission, Niti Aayog, to launch 3 challenges in space domain. ARISE. ARISE means applied research and innovation and in small enterprises program as a part of Atmanirbhar Atal New India challenges. The areas are propulsion, geospatial information, robotics, augmented reality, virtual reality. I would like the Indian Space Organization has envisaged to adopt 100 Atal Tinkering Labs across the country to promote education in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, space education, and space technology, related concepts such as electronics, physics, optics, space technology, material science, and etc. etc. Let me list out a partial list of space startups. Megvahan, Nopo Nanotechnologies, Astrogate Labs, Kawa Space, Antrix, Bellatrix Aerospace, Dhruva Space, Pixel, Agricool, Skyroot, aerospace. At least two Indian rocket startups, Skyroot and Agricool, are racing to put small satellites into orbits next year, joining scores of others, including deep-pocketed ventures run by Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, for a slice of the growing market for transportation of payloads into space. Future of space business model, according to KPMG report titled 30 Voices and 2030, the future of space. It talks about every business will be a space business. Long established terrestrial industries will build a presence in space. Multinational cooperation, while challenging, will drive the peace dividend. Leading space businesses of 2030 are startups today. Government will be a customer of civil space business. Manufacturing in space will be real and viable. When space exploration first started, missions were predominantly government-led. In recent years, however, many new space companies have started building and operating hardware in space, while others leverage the data and services available. Already in 2020, many multinational businesses from sectors including agriculture, financial services, government, and logistics are investing in space sector and understanding how it can add value to their business on Earth. According to the synopsis of the guest speakers, global satellites giants such as OneWeb, Starlink, Hughes, Amazon, and Viasat, amongst the others, are all set to enter Indian market in a big way and change the dynamics dramatically. As per the Antrix PwC study 2020, Indian space economy is valued at $7 billion, which is around 2% of the global space economy. Of this, upstream activities contribute $2.3 billion and downstream activities contribute $4.7 billion. Investors are now looking at space tech startups as a viable investment opportunity. There are about 120 active startups, out of which 40 startups are engaged with government at present. Government incentives for both the startups and MSMEs are prerequisite elements for the ecosystems to get the first push. Investing in human capital is by far the most important aspect when it comes to the success of the startups in the space industry, and the role of academia and skill development is very crucial. Various countries have established several business incubation centers, and India needs to replicate similar success and follow similar strategy. With this background, let us now turn to the address by our guest speaker, Mr. Anil Prakash, Director General first, and next, Mr. Rajiv Gupta, Senior Director, Technology Policy, SATCOM Industries Association, New Delhi, on the topic, Space Startups Connecting to International Markets with Emerging Business Models. The topics will motivate and galvanize the participants watching over telecast through facebook.com, Sobit University, India, or youtube.com, Sobit University in, or linkedin.com/company, Sobit-University, for motivating them to harness the power of transformers, technology, and capital to establish startups to become open APIs for effective collaboration with the emerging space startups in the country. Let me introduce our guest speaker. Mr. Manish, can you put the profile of Mr. Anil Prakash? Mr. Anil Prakash is the Director General, SATCOM Industries Association, India, New Delhi, is a very widely experienced in government relation, regulatory and policy framework, with a strong techno-commercial background in telecom, ICT, satellite and broadcasting on digital platform, with 37 years of work experience. Mr. Anil Prakash is associated with the International Telecommunication Union, ITU, for more than a decade and has played an influential role in contributing towards ITU's activities in India. He is an active member of various task forces set up by the government and Telecom Association and Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Anil Prakash has represented at major international conferences and for more than 3 decades. Currently, he is serving the SATCOM Industry Association as Director General, which represents a unified voice for the SATCOM industry in India. Mr. Anil Prakash, we welcome you to the today's international webinar series in open source digital technology towards self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Over to you for your address.
Thank you, Professor Moni. And first of all, let me thank Shobit University and ARDO for organizing such a wonderful series of topical deep technology series. And we have been very privileged to be part of this series. And today we're going to present a space startup connecting to international market with emerging business model. And Professor Moni, in his opening address, has covered very widely the complete ecosystem of SATCOM industry in India. That is, we are just going to be, some of them we are going to reiterate in our presentation. So this presentation with me and my colleague Rajiv Gupta. So we'll start the presentation. Kindly upload presentation, Rajiv. Thank you. Maybe we can move to the next slide. This is about our association, SATCOM Industry Association. It's a non-profit association which represents interest of communication.
Sir, can you please do this presentation in slideshow mode so that it come on the big screen?
Rajiv, can you put on slideshow? While he's doing it, so it's a vibrant body. CIDSA represents satellite operators, satellite system, launch vehicles, and ground and terminal equipment manufacturer, as well as application solution provider to the government, regulator, policymaker, and domestic and international standard bodies. As apex representation body for the satellite communication ecosystem, we aim to present the industry interest to the highest government level with the policy making and regulatory and licensing matters. Our vision to serve as a unified voice for the communication satellite industry in India. Next slide, please. Next slide, Rajiv. Okay, this is our presentation points, which we're going to cover in next half an hour, 40 minutes.
I think, Mr. Anil, the slide is not coming. It is not visible.
Yeah, he's trying to put it back. Okay, while the slide is putting on board, I'm just going to shall I put it from my side, Rajiv?
I am trying again.
Yeah,
now I can do it now. Okay.
Please do that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we move to the second slide. Yeah. Oh, this is the Can you put it in slide share mode?
Slideshow mode from the beginning.
Okay, this is the presentation part for today that we were going to cover the Indian SATCOM sector in overview and fundamentals of space industry, the structure of space value chain, policy regulatory landscape, a role of industry and academic institution, and a big picture. Next slide is going to talk about. Next slide, please. Raju, next slide.
Happening at my end. Manish, I think you will have to do it from your side.
Okay.
Because I am on the slide which says the Indian economy powered by satellite. Are you able to see that?
No.
No, sir. Yes, sir. You please email me the slide. I'll show from my end, sir.
I think the slides were emailed yesterday, but I'll do it right away.
Sure, sir.
Manish ji, I have sent it to you. Manish ji,
Yes, sir.
I have sent it to your WhatsApp.
Okay, sir.
I've sent on the Gmail, Manish, on your.
I'm sorry, listener, for this technical glitch. And
Just 1 minute. 1 minute.
moving to the next slide. Okay, so this is the agenda for our discussion. We already covered. Let's move to the next slide quickly. This is a very important slide which touch upon the Indian economy powered by satellite, and you see the three pillar of the ecosystem is strongly represented by the satellite ecosystem. The one hand, the government services, and the other hand is the industry, the vibrant industry, and the citizen. So it connects the government, industry, and citizen. And the applications which touch upon by the satellites, ranging from like we are viewing every day in our home, the television. There are the television screen, then bank ATMs, which is powered by the satellite, and it is ease of that you can draw cash anytime, anywhere. And then this is it says powering the digital cinemas. It is powering the stock exchange, our financial sector, and this is also powering our petrol pumps, rural areas, and it is also G2C, so government to citizen service, which is 40,000 villages in empowered e-governance. So this is a very important aspect of the satellite ecosystem and how it works in our day-to-day life. Next slide, please. This is another application which is further elaborate how it is going to be used in the enterprise network, in the banking network, digital cinema. I touch upon one go. The 3,000 screens in the first day, first show can be seen. This could be possible because of the satellite. Otherwise, you go back to the early days and you say there is a rolls of films are being transported from one cinema to other, and at the one given time, only few cinemas can show a film release. Now, at one go, not across in India, but it's across globe. In one go, it can be seen in multi-location at the same time. It has empowered. COVID has shown it. We have to work from home. We're confined to the wherever we have now. So how the application is, it's empowered by the connectivity, and satellite plays a very crucial role in connecting those places which has not been connected otherwise. We have a community Wi-Fi. Then it is working as a 4G or 3 backhaul service. You use the mobile services which is being used now. Some of the area which is required backhauling, where the satellites come in play a big role into it. It's also work on our mobility, where it is connecting our aircraft while you are on air. This in-flight connectivity, or when you are on a sea, the maritime connectivity is all possible because of the satellite. Of course, it's bring us to our digitally connected, and it's create a digital divide. So next slide, please. This slide shows that how at the same time the multi areas of the society is being connected through this digital divide, and you see the one hand that there is a rural area, and which is people are the students are joining and e-learning, and there is you see the number of dishes are popping out from the windows. It's because all they are watching the television, and then you see the disaster area where natural calamity occurs, and immediately without any further delay, communications being set up, and it's helped to mitigate the disaster relief. So this is the very crucial role which satellites play today in our life. Next slide, please. This slide will touch upon Professor Moni has in his opening remark touch upon how India has been started in journey in the space satellite area, and the left side picture shows that what is the satellite industry globally. It is $500 billion industry, and there are key areas where the satellites touch upon. And on the right side, India is just started. We are a very nascent state. You see that there is various application in terms of satellite connectivity. We have certain constraint because of the bandwidth, but we're going to overcome with this in the next decade or so. Ground equipment which receive the satellite signal, they are limited. We are getting up the manufacturing, as Professor Moni also touched upon the manufacturing opportunity as set by the government various policies. We have satellite manufacturing, which just started in a small way, but it is going to go. ISRO is have the open arm policy, and it's helping us, the manufacturing community to work on that direction. Then we have the launch industry, which is we have a laurel of the having to launch industry, because we have successfully launched number of satellites in the sky, not only Indian satellite but the foreign satellites. The bottom of this slide, right hand side, it shows that we have 2% of the global market share, which is close to about $5 to $7 billion. We have a capacity to grow to 10% in the next decade, which will be a $50 billion industry. And it is because of the technical innovation and resilient network, be able to transform to be the next hub of satellite activity in India. Next slide, please. This slide touch upon the evaluation on the space sector, and I touch upon in the previous slide. It's growing in from the various satellite development to launch facility. Then we have the connectivity. Then we have a remote sensing application. We have navigational. Then there's a defense application. So all are working in a tandem, and it's creating a push and pull for the requirement for the satellite and the space sector. Next slide, please. So how satellites work, and they work probably in a different band, and these slides touch upon which bands on what bandwidth and what their services are. You see that there is first is L band, which is 1 to 2 gigahertz band, and it's used for our GPS system and NAVIC system. And then we have a S band, which is 2.24 gigahertz, which is used for broadcasting uh, uh, and a mobile satellite solution. Then we have a C band, which is 3.6 to 4.2 gigahertz, which is used for the uh, broadcasting again and for TVR service. And then we have a KU band. We probably see the small dish outside of your home, or I think there's a KU band that is primarily used for the DTS service. And we have close to about 70 million active DTH subscribers in the country. Then the last one is K band, which is very important band, which is start 27.2 to 29.5 gigahertz. This is the frequency which has been identified by the International Telecommunication Union for the satellite services. This is the new age satellite communication, where the high throughput satellites work, and this all important bands are important, and India has to follow the international norms and for the availability of the bandwidth in these bands. Next slide, please. We have that. This is also important slide where we have the various satellite orbit and where their applications. We have GEO, MEO, and LEO. GEO is primarily about 25,000 kilometer above the Earth, and it's operate there. Primarily, it is all GEO satellite. Then we have a MEO, which is medium Earth orbit satellite, which is about 10,000 to 20,000 kilometer above the Earth. Then we have a LEO, which is much talked about nowadays. It's a low Earth orbit, which is very closer to Earth. This is about 160 kilometer to 1,600 kilometer above the Earth. And this is because they are closer to Earth, and they have a high latency. Low latency, and they can provide a lot of application in IoT area. So this is also the broadband connectivity to anywhere, anytime. So you'll be hearing about the Starlink or OneWeb and Telesat and Kuiper of Amazon. They're all active LEO constellations, which is going to be operative from the next year onward, from mid 2022. We have the LEO OneWeb constellation is going to be available from India. So India has launched 328 satellites for 33 different countries, and we are the one of the fourth nation which have the satellite launch capacity. Next slide, please. So this slide is basically talk about. Now I will like to hand over to my colleague Rajiv to take it forward for the slides. Over to you, Rajiv.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anil Prakash, for your initial opening discussions. Let me introduce Mr. Rajiv Gambhir. Mr. Rajiv Gambhir is the Senior Director, Technology and Policy, SATCOM Industries Association, India. He is a seasoned broadcast media and a telecom professional with a career span of over 3.5 decades, working with optical, coaxial, terrestrial, wireless, and satellite-based access businesses for video and data delivery. Prior to SATCOM Industries Association India, Mr. Rajiv Gambhir was the Vice President at Reliance Jio. Currently, Mr. Rajiv Gupta is the Senior Director Technology and Policy at SATCOM Industry Association. Mr. Rajiv Gambhir, we welcome you to the international webinar series on open source digital technologies for self-reliant India Atmanirbhar to, to talk on space startups connected to international market with emerging business models to the participants who are from both India and abroad. Over to Mr. Rajiv Gambhir.
Thank you, Professor Moni, and thanks to Shobit University for having me here. It's a wonderful opportunity to interact with all of you and share our thoughts. Uh, so, while Anilji has taken you through a journey of the importance of the satellite segment and how it contributes to the national economy, allow me to take you through a journey of technology and how it has impacted the businesses on where we are today. Some of you may be aware of the historical aspects, but for the benefit of those who are not, I may want to reiterate. So it all started in possibly 1945 when Sir Arthur C. Clarke wrote an article in a magazine saying that if an object is placed in space at around 36,000 kilometers in an imaginary plane around the equator, and it is run at a speed which is equal to the angular velocity of the Earth, so that any point of the Earth, this object will appear to be stationary. That's what we call geostationary satellites. Unfortunately, he did not get a patent on this. On the other hand, even if he had, commercial satellites actually came into being around 1960s. So the 20-year period would have been passed by that time. Now, uh, let's park this orbit for a moment and we'll revisit that. We saw a slide by Anilji on the various bands. So let's understand what's the importance of those bands and how it impacts the communication sector in whole and satellite communications in particular. So for long, the communications industry has been looking at an ecosystem where services can be deployed based on available technology. So when you see the frequencies below 1 gigahertz, they were all used up by the radios and the televisions and the VHF communications of the world. So now when you want to add more services, you need more spectrum. So as you move on to the spectrum, let's say 1 to 2 gigahertz, and there are multiple services vying for a slice of it. Let's say satellite segment gets 10% of 1 gigahertz. That's 100 megahertz. Now, what kind of information can be carried on that is essentially dependent on two parameters. One is what is the spectrum available, which we decided as 10% of 1 gig is 100 megahertz. And the other is how many bits. Information is bits, right? So, how many bits per hertz can we deliver? And that there are a lot of technology parameters that would determine that. But what if this 100 megahertz is not sufficient? Do I fight with other alternative services to get a larger slice, or do I look at greener pastures? So that's where, when you, let's say, if we move our communication to 100 gigahertz, and I'm just taking it as an example, just showing a number to you, 10% of that would be a 10 gigahertz spectrum. That's a whole lot of spectrum available to any communication systems. Now, for the communication services to develop in that segment, the technology has to be able to support it. So why services earlier in the lower bands was because electronics was not advanced enough to develop components and subsystems which could serve the higher frequency bands. Now, the KU band, which and the KA band, which Anilji mentioned, which is around the 30 gigahertz range, electronics was not able to support that. There are also some other issues in respect of what kind of atmospheric impacts are there on different frequency bands. Why I'm laying this groundwork of history is because each one of those decisions has impacted businesses and are going to impact businesses in times to come. Now, let's come back to orbit for a moment now. When we looked at the geostationary orbit, and because the object looks stationary to Earth, uh, you could have three satellites theoretically covering the whole of Earth, at least the habitated portion of the Earth. Now, satellite applications broadly fall into three areas. One is communications, that could be broadcast or it could be a two-way communication. The other important aspect is remote sensing, which includes all kind of Earth observation and all the applications that we talk about in agriculture and fisheries, in climate observation. All of these are covered by remote sensing. And the third would be navigation. All your GPS and GPS based applications are using satellites to that end. So uh, when it comes to the, let's talk about the navigation shortly. And there was a recent study which said that just in case GPS fail, the US economy will suffer a loss of $1 billion per day. So you can understand it's not just a satellite, but the kind of economy it supports and the kind of wealth it generates for countries. At the same time, there were, while you were doing Earth observation at geo orbits, which is 36,000 kilometers away from Earth, uh, you understand that the payloads, let's say an optical payload, it's an imaging device. You have your Google Maps, right? You have those snapshots, and you see the satellite imagery over there. The optical payloads would be much larger because now you are trying to zoom in from 36,000 kilometers to the Earth's surface. You would like to reduce the optical payload size, and one way of doing that would be to bring the satellite closer to Earth. But the moment you bring the satellite closer to Earth, the equation between the gravitational pull and the centrifugal force changes, which means now the satellite needs to run much faster. The angular velocity of the satellite being more than the angular velocity of the Earth means that the satellite will be above you for a short duration of time, and which means that as soon as this satellite moves away, another satellite needs to come in and do the job. It is just like moving from, when you're in a vehicle, you're moving and you're on a call, and your call gets handed over from one base station to another. In this case, while the user is stationary, the base stations are moving. Now, when you bring the satellites closer to Earth, it brings with it a lot of new technological challenges uh, and solutions as well. The challenges would be, let's say for a two-way communication, you are able to talk to a satellite, but where does this communication go? This communication has to land up to a Earth station somewhere, and the Earth station again has to be within the footprint of the satellite. If that is not possible, then you would be talking about inter-satellite links, which was not required earlier. In case of Earth observation, if the satellite observes a particular image, and images are a whole lot of bits, you know that, right? How does it transfer it back to the Earth station? Or do we need to do some edge processing? And we now see that a lot of edge computing is moving on to the satellite. If I have taken two snaps of the same area on Earth, can I do just a differential transfer of data? Uh, how does all this data get processed? Uh, you see, the AWSs and the Microsofts of the world are now looking at this very seriously, and they have come up with business solutions. AWS has come up with the AWS ground station. Microsoft has come out with Azure Orbital. So a whole lot of data processing that is required can be done at their data centers. And the low Earth orbit is not just one single number, just as it was in the case of geo satellites. It's not 36,000 kilometers. It could be 300 kilometers. It could be 800 kilometers. Which means that now the rockets that we need, one, they do not need the power to go up to 36,000 kilometers. At the same time, now we need a rocket which can do a multi-orbit maneuver. It should be able to launch a satellite at 300 kilometers and then move on to drop another satellite at 600 kilometers, and then move on to drop another satellite at 800 kilometers. The smaller satellites also means that the power backup systems would be smaller. That the average life from a of a geo satellite used to be 15 years, which in the case of LEO satellites we say is around 5 years. Which brings us to the launch equation. Now, do we need launch services? Because these satellites will need to be replaced every 5 years. Do we need launch services which can do a more frequent maneuver? Or do we not need relaunch vehicles? What kind of climate impact do all these frequent launches have? Does it mean we need to look at newer propulsion systems, a green fuel maybe, or electric propulsion systems? Blockchain has had a good impact on the kind of data that we are processing. The low Earth orbit for Earth observation, I'll just give you an example. Uh, when you look at the fisheries and who go out for deep sea fishing, they are looking at number one, Earth observation. When you do a deep sea fishing, you need to know where the catch is. And the catch is where the sea temperatures are higher than the surrounding areas. The Earth observation satellite is able to capture that. Now, you need to have a navigation to reach that point, and you need to have communication systems to talk back to your uh, the Earth, the shore systems. Now, all of this put together adds a lot of value to agriculture, to fisheries, uh, to the government services, and to remote connectivity. So, what we see on the screens are the kind of advances in the satellite technologies that have happened since 1945 when Sir Arthur C. Clarke proposed the first satellite systems. The Ka band, which Anil ji mentioned, has comes with its own challenges and advantages. One advantage is it is a wide network. Other advantages being a high frequency, you could narrow the beam for a spot on the Earth, which means that you could use the same frequency again and again on another spot on the Earth. So there is a higher frequency reuse, and because of a narrow beam, you could have more power on the Earth. Combine this with the LEO orbit thing, and you have a lot of business solutions that will work. But are we talking of a traffic jam? The kind of satellites we have around 2,000 to 3, we have around 3,000 satellites orbiting the Earth today, and the plans are to have another 12,000 to 20,000 satellites in the next 2 years. That's going to be a lot of traffic around the Earth. Now, that brings us to the topic of space situational awareness. And while we talked of a lot of startups in this country, one of the startups that we are engaged with is launching satellites for understanding the satellite's trajectory path. So it would help with collision alerts, it would help with collision detection. It would also help for the end of a satellite to deorbit that satellite because that slot needs to be cleared for a new satellite to come in. Can we move on to the next slide, please? I'm sorry if I took too much of your time on this particular slide, but I thought this part
No,
was
it is,
important.
Mr. Gambhir, it is very important that you take your own time, and this talk is very important because our the youths studying in rural institutions, rural area, have to understand. And this is the technology, even though it is initiated, India is well positioned, but understanding, awareness, the rural area, rural institutions are minimal. And take your own time, and the time is not a constraint, and the technology propagation is more important. Please don't get constrained. Please carry on.
Thank you so much, Professor Moni. Thanks for the kind words. So can I go to the next slide, please? So what we discussed, the whole industry of the satellite. The space value chain can be structured or bucketed around three subjects. One would be the upstream, which includes the satellite manufacturing, the satellite launches, the program management, the mission control. The other would be the midstream. Once the satellite is in orbit, you need to do telemetry, tracking and control, station keeping, mission control. So that would be in the midstream. And the downstream is where all the value add for other industries comes in. So when we talk of the communication side, when we talk of the earth observation information, when we talk of the navigation applications that we discussed earlier, all of that would be the downstream applications, and that generates a lot of value in terms for the economy as such. So Anil ji touched on the subject that we uh, we aspire to grow from $7 billion today to around $50 billion in a decade, uh, and that would be just around 10% of the space economy, right? That would a whole host of it would be coming from the downstream applications. That does not in any way reduce the importance of the upstream economy, because the demand on the downstream would dictate the demand on the upstream resources. So, more satellites, more payloads, more launches, and more situational awareness of the space. Right? So, today we have the upstream, the 7 billion is mostly divided into upstream and downstream, because the midstream is kind of a budget for the ISRO part, that being the uh, practically the sole player on that side today. But that's the situation is going to change as we move ahead. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, all of these businesses cannot work in vacuum. There has to be a regulatory landscape which enables all these things. A very encouraging uh, policy document came up in 2018, and that was the National Digital Communications Policy. Anybody who has interest in the communication side of uh, economy should really go through it. It encompasses the government's vision of how to enable the communication sector to grow in general, and it has some very important observations on the satellite economy and the kind of regulatory changes that the government intends to do to open up the economy to the private sector. This was followed up with a slew of draft policy measures, and they were from recommendations from TRAI, there were approvals from the Digital Communication Commission, there were some uh, draft space policies on the space com, remote sensing, navigation, and space transportation, as Professor Moni mentioned. And we also now have a draft policy on the humans in space, right? So all of this lays the groundwork. As the pieces come together, uh, the industry will have a much larger role to play in the space economy than it is doing today. Today, the industry is uh, quite capable, and the capability has built by the support of ISRO. And we have to give them the due credit for laying these foundational things in mind. Can we go to the next slide? I think we would have something there on this. Yeah. So, just for a reference, the PSLV project, 80% of that is outsourced to the private industries. So you can understand that while the whole project is conceived and managed by ISRO, the major components and the major manufacturing of the subcomponents, sub-assemblies is outsourced to the private industries. This builds up a whole host of capabilities in the industry, and we are engaged with companies who are now even doing work internationally, albeit at a smaller scale. The potential is much higher for that. In similar lines, the Mars Orbiter mission, over 120 companies have contributed to the manufacturing of that particular mission. That talks a lot about the capabilities that we have in this country. And the capabilities could go down to something as simple, or I wouldn't say simple, but something as uh, very consequential, not trivial, but something not known, let's put it this way, as carbon nanotubes. carbon nanotubes have a special role in the satellite thing. And we have a company here who does 100 crore business in carbon nanotubes alone. And that's a very specialized product. So, with all these capabilities and the regulatory landscape coming up, we see a scope for these existing industry players to grow much larger and uh, for them to take on the world markets and also a place for startups to play. Can we go to the next slide, please? So, the startup community in India, uh, I'm really proud of that. I engage with each one of them, and they are doing some phenomenal work, some exciting work. I talked to you about that company which is working on deorbiting satellites and space situational awareness. Professor Moni talked about Agnicool and Skyroot were in the launch business. Bellatrix have a launch project ready, but they are also working on satellite thrusters, the Hall thrusters for satellite. Because in station keeping, the satellites need to have some kind of maneuvering from time to time, and you need a low energy thrusters there, uh, and you don't want to add a lot of fuel load to the satellite. So those Hall thrusters impact there. We have companies which are working on the frequency bands higher than the Ka band in the Q and V and E bands for communication links. There is a company which is working on using optical links for communication between satellite and Earth and inter-satellite links as well. When I look at them, I feel much younger myself. When I look at you guys, I feel much younger myself. There is so much that can be done in this segment, and there's so much uh, outcome that can be delivered in education, in agriculture, in climate, in enterprise, satellite manufacturing, Earth observation. Look at Earth observation alone. Optical imaging is now being supplemented by synthetic aperture radars because you see, optical imaging works in lighted conditions. So you would like your satellite to take a path over areas which are lighted so that the optical imaging can be done. It could run in the spectral ranges, it could run in hyperspectral ranges, but now that can be complemented with synthetic aperture radars so that even in night, imaging can be, or decision making can be done based on the information taken at night. The opportunities are more than that have been explored. ISRO comes out with a document which is, believe, called Yukti or something, in which they list out 800 areas of research that they would like academic institutions to work on. But that suppose would be for the technology institutions. But as business mandate, those technologies need to be put into use, and the outcome of that needs to be put to the advantage of the society as a whole, and of course, profitability of the businesses. Why not? Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So, when I look at these startups, some of them are being incubated right now at the Indian Institute of Science, at IIT Chennai. IIT Mumbai is doing a good work. Professor Moni talked about the ISRO initiative of having the stick that's called some incubator centers. Uh, I'm forgetting the full form of that. It's an incubator center which is there at the NITs in India. Uh, they have research outsourced to colleges, and few of these startups have come from there. So the foundational work that ISRO has done is also helping in these startups in coming up with solutions not thought of before or looking at problems with a different perspective. And ISRO, being a research organization, has a lot of capabilities at hand. So, and they do a lot of hand holding for these startups. One of the companies that is a startup, they do not have a team of, it was not sorted by rocket scientists, but they're the launch business because they have the right kind of people. Some people have left ISRO and joined this these startup organizations. Right? So there is a lot of potential, I would say, that for startups to come and deliver, and the seeds of these startups is kind of incubated in the academia itself. Uh, we are also engaging with the academia. We have a program within the SATCOM Industry Association. We have a mandate to engage with the academia and evangelize the space economy so that you guys can take up the challenges and come up with business solutions which would do good to you and to the nation as such. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is a list of companies, and this is neither uh, complete nor conclusive because the situation changes every day. But it's just to give you a glance of the kind of companies which are either present in India or waiting to enter. Uh, and I don't think one slide can do justice if I try to put the name of the companies here. Uh, this There's so many more companies that I can think off the head at this moment. This should give you a picture of what kind of opportunities are there, either starting an enterprise or working for an enterprise which is into the space economy. Can we go to the next slide, please? So there was in 2020, the finance minister announced the participation of the private sector and how the nation could support those initiatives. And the businesses, whether it's national or international, they're keen to bring in the foreign direct investment into the India. The regulatory landscape, as I mentioned, the pieces are being put together, and they will come up uh, with a structure that will be very conducive. We have the regulatory function is now being established within ISRO as a separate entity called InSpace. So all the regulatory interfaces of the industry with the space sector would happen through InSpace, and conflict of interest, subjects like conflict of interest will not happen. More clarity, proper SLAs, a better turnaround times can be established, right? So all of this, once this comes in, we expect a lot of investment to come into the nation, and the satellite segment, uh, as was mentioned before, every company, Professor Moni mentioned, every company will be a space company. Yeah. So yes, and we do agree with that, and we are quite upbeat about the potential of this sector and uh, for the nation as such. Next slide, please. So that's a big picture. I'll just uh, read through it. The GOI around has over the years shown an intent to for this sector to grow. The NDCP 2018 was when the intent was very clearly put forth into a document, and it was a very, very good document. The MSME system that we have today has a lot of capabilities. In fact, one of the initiatives that we are working on is to try to see how these capabilities could be shared with the startups, not just from ISRO, but from the private industry also. To give you an example, something to do with Brexit, but the UK Space Agency pulled out from Netherlands and started a Harbour Space Complex around Oxford. Today, they have some large anchor companies, Airbus and Boeing, and some other, and then they have a whole slew of startups within the campus who are able to. There is a lot of technology sharing. There is a lot of facility sharing. we are looking at facilities which are available within the MSMEs and the government, which can be made available to the startups so that they don't have to. It's a capital intensive industry, let's agree to it. So every company need not invest in the same facilities. So as an association, we are trying to see how we could bring those facilities on a sharing basis to small startups so that they could do their experiments, they could do their tests. Everything need not be tested to space. In fact, a lot of those tests are done on ground before the object is actually sent to the space. So we are working towards those ends, just sharing off the record. And we are quite encouraged by what the startups are doing, but the potential is much more. The number of startups in India are lesser on a per capita basis or on a per as a percentage of GDP than they are in a few developed nations, and we would like a similar development to happen within this country as well. So uh, I think I will shut up now and leave the floor open in case you have any questions. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Mr. Anil can also join now. Very nice set. And it is indeed a very important address by both of you from a very important institution, SATCOM Industries Association, and also it's the type of talk which you brought in, you delivered with the knowledge which accompanied. It's very important, and it is and this series that is today is the 42nd edition, and it is quite enriched. When I started my first edition in the month of August 2020 during the COVID situation, I was keeping my fingers crossed, and every week it is going, except for one 45 days when I was not well, I have stopped it. But otherwise, every week by 11:30 it starts, without even a minute delay. But today, I'm very happy that it has really even motivated me to spend more time, and also to invite through your institution more industries to talk on space industry, space technology, to motivate the youth from the rural area. You said it that space industry requires constant flow of young innovation minds to join. Today, it is restricted to the students of urban area, urban institutions. But the same type of intelligence are also available in the rural area. They are not in a position to walk up to the nearest town, nearest institutions. Everywhere the bottlenecks are there. Even though it is the economy is opened up, institutions are opened up, and I'm very happy that ISRO is now, it's after, with their opening their leading technologies to the people. And I still remember that when the Mr. Madhav Nair, Shri Madhav Nair was the chairman of ISRO. I was part of the one committee at propagation of technology, space technology at the grassroots level. In the meeting, at that time I was Deputy Director General NIC, I requested the chairman that why can't you ISRO adopt about 120 Department of Geography in various colleges at the grassroots level who teaches geography, so that your remote sensing pictures has to be interpreted at the panchayat level. And when this big dam will be burst, depending on the water, and then it destroys so many areas that there's a commanding areas. And I was he was very much agree. I was able to see his face, but immediately once space scientist was participating, he said that, sir, that many of the geography is not taught with mathematics and physics. And when only two universities teach, geography as a science, University of Pune and another, Andhra University. And all the other places, it is considered as it comes under, arts, humanities. And it is a part of social science. And then before I opened my mouth, the chairman said it, we will write to UGC to change the curriculum. We will write to UGC in order for ISRO to, that support the Department of Geographies in both in the, government institutions and private institutions. And we need a lot of human resources to interpret our remote sensing, imageries at the grassroots level. Is are all now restricted to Institute of Higher Education institution in universities or university departments and IITs and Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Let us write to UGC to change the curriculum to include maths and physics. And when the minutes of, even after the chairman said it, when the minutes came, those items were not included. I refused to sign. It has happened in 2008. And, now today, I retired in 2013 as the Director General National Informatics Center. Now I associated with the university to set up 5 centers of excellence to promote technology to the rural area, and agriculture, industries, and health, and the 3 important areas to, until unless we, digitalize Indian local economy, Indian economy cannot be digitalized. And it is more important. So today I am very happy through your presentation. That's why when Mr. Anil Prakash, which he sent the conference of invitations of, I think, 1 month back, then I thought that I should invite both of invite Mr. Anil Prakash, and he said that Mr. Rajiv Gambhir also has to participate. And today you have done a wonderful one. You entered with a one that big picture opportunities. And with the past success of ISRO, and you also given an example that PSLV has got 90%, components were outsourced. And that shows that India has reached the higher level of manufacturing with the joint, public sector and private sector collaboration, cooperation, both the science, technology innovations and the research innovations and development innovations and manufacturing innovation. But innovation has to be not only in the assembling, it has to be in every aspect. And your slides are something like it is, if many of the research scholars would have participated today, they would have picked up every one of your slides for their in-depth study. You got about something like 24 slides, except the initial one and the last one. Thank you. That the 20 slides minimum would have attracted 20 research problems. Why not? How not? And where not? These 3 questions with 3 into 2, 6 questions would have given an ample opportunity for our young youth minds with the background on STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and plus management. You would also add M, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and management. Without management, that it is a silos. The management should cut across the barriers of all conservatism. And you said it, role of startups and academia. And I'm very happy. The reason for, after working in government for 35 years in e-governance sector in almost all areas, and then I thought that let me spend my time after retirement in the rural area to bring in technology for rural India, rural economy. You said it that if a satellite is down in US, you also given it that how much $1 trillion economy is down every day. That's how, that more than 200 satellites, roaming over, helping the US economy, to be on the top. So India is a huge populations. It's about equivalent to 29 countries. That how many satellites should roam around in the low Earth orbit? That's why I thought that in my introductory one, I should also quote the KPMG, report that the future of, of this space is that, it is a space industry, and even government will become a customer to the space, industry. That is an important thing. And, and I'm very happy that the government was able to rope in MSMEs like anything. And it's until unless our the India has got about something like 63 million MSMEs, and these MSMEs has to be digitally empowered with the government support, and government bodies which are supporting MSMEs, they're all they're in this deep slumber. Industry 4.0 technology is being taught. It is nowhere near MSMEs. So I initiated a course on MBA in Industry 4.0 to train only CEOs of MSMEs. Whether it is 5 people MSME or 100 people MSME, the CEOs has to be trained. They have to be AI-enabled leaders. They are the edge computers. They should adopt edge computing. And as a technologist, as a former IITian, I did my MTech computer science from IIT Chennai 76-78 batch. I'm very happy to listen to your, as a student, I was listening and taking notes for both of your presentation and so on and so forth. But it needs, and on one slide, I was very much concerned. I should repeat it. It has to go as a policy paper with your support from the university to the government. Remove regulatory and spectrum uncertainty to ensure foreign direct investment. It is a big statement which you made it, and nobody else would have made such a statement. You've done it for the interest of Indian economy. It has to be on the top. And when, it is not like a defense sector, even the defense sector also, that MSMEs, many of the components are outsourced to MSMEs. But this is a technology-based, industry. Communication is more important, and sophisticated technology can come. And if all 4,500 engineering colleges in the country, and also 18,000 non-engineering colleges who teach computer science, if the students are taught, effectively, this biology, mathematics, physics, and computer science as the core subjects, without any, without any, reservations, because young kids can learn this, science components without any inhibition. And the teachers also has to be, trained, and that trained on a periodic basis. And the country has to have the strong National Institute of Teacher Training in mathematics, National Institute of Teacher Training in physics, National Institute of Teacher Training in biology, National Institute of Teacher Training in in computer science, and so on and so forth. You said in 5 areas: electronics, fiber optics, and space technology, and so on and so forth. One institution of space science and research is not going to help this country. Those Indian Space Research Institute, without any inhibition, they have to move down to the rural areas. They have to accommodate and put it whichever 4,500 engineering colleges, whether UGC gives NAC accreditation or not, that they have to go and see that rural students with that impact that and curriculum has to be changed. Change the curriculum. And we have to make that it is not only online India, it is a real-time India, real technology. And your two statements which you made it, remove regulatory and spectrum uncertainty to ensure FDI is one important policy paper. Second one is space industry requires constant flow of young innovative minds to join. We have got IITs, NITs, IIMs, Central University, and Triple IT. Every state, 29 states, 29 into 5 National Institute of Importance. So they have to identify, go down to every institutions, pick up students with STEM capabilities. And, it should not stop with only giving some awards and scholarships. They have to see to that where they should end up in their career. That is more important. And so this is a very important topic. And, Mr. Anil Prakash and Mr. Rajiv Gupta, and, with your support, I would like to initiate some academic program in the Soviet Institute of Engineering Technology and through Centers of Excellence to motivate and galvanize the rural students with the STEM capabilities to get into space technology enabled industries. It is very important. That's why in my talk I said it, that it will galvanize many startups as an open APIs to space technology startups. Because you said it, I also mentioned it. Agricultural industry, in the sector, is many companies are opening space startups to look into agricultural domain. You also mentioned in your address agriculture and fisheries. And I was associated with the chairman of 2 subcommittees of doubling farmers' income by 2022, volume 11 and volume 12B. Volume 12B talks about digital technology in agriculture, 7 mission mode projects. If these 7 mission mode projects are operationalized at the farmer level, village level, India will be globalized. Indian economy will be globalized. It's a platform economy in agriculture. Agriculture will be the bowl for development of India. So it is a spatial, it is a spatial infrastructure at the ground. And all spatial technology has to be beamed over spatial infrastructure, which is land and natural resource information. I was the member secretary of the, ISRO, and in an RMS, National Natural Resource Management System, on Agricultural Resources Information System. The report was submitted in 2002, but it is still gathering dust in governmental shelves. We don't have a comprehensive agricultural resources information system in the country. We don't, this is one thing which I would like to discuss with you. It is also figuring in the Doubling Farmers' Income Committee report, report 2018. And in this one, I think Soviet Institute of Engineering Technology and 4 centers of excellence, Center for Informatics Development Solutions and applications, Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Applications, and Center for Agricultural Informatics and E-Governance Research Studies, and Center for Agribusiness and Disaster Management Studies can, bring in an effective agricultural resource management system in the country to help 14 crore operational holdings, out of which 85% are rural or small and marginal operational holdings. They are not the large scale farmers, and they are the food security of the nation. They have to be given all technology support, not only the digital support through the terrestrial line, it also has to come from the space technology. And I know I have even chaired a lot of discussions on presentation on space technology for agriculture in space, many of space in agriculture in space. And this is a very important thing. This is a beginning, and between for our relationship between space, SATCOM Industries Association India and Soviet Institute of Engineering Technology. This webinar series is organized in collaboration with, in association with African Asian Rural Development Organization, which is headquarters at Delhi, which is a 33 member countries. Today, the talk which both of you delivered is also beamed to all the 33 countries, member countries of Ardo through the website of Ardo, portal. So I'll be very happy that to have our relationship cemented very effectively, and also both for academia and industries association, and also startups to become an open API to space tech startup. With this, I would like to hear final words from both of you before I close this webinar. Over to Mr. Anil Prakash and then Mr. Rajiv Gupta.
Thank you, Professor Moni, for very nicely capturing the whole, uh, the space sector. Uh, what we are lacking in the country is basically the academia and industry collaboration. Um, but the startups have shown us the way and the path, and we have to make a conducive atmosphere through the policy development, through the incentivizing various universities and putting up their center of excellence. So the more and more young minds get get their thought developed into products, and products developed into uh, a real resource for the sector. So it is very important, and I'm very sorry to say that there is hardly any. You also said in your quote there is a very little work is doing in that direction. I think that our uh, emphasis will be, as I said, Com Industry Association to reach out to all the academic institutions. Those have a appetite, and they have the open up their space as a one of the stream into their academic uh, curriculum. And not necessarily it has to be engineering college, as rightly said. It can go across, as you said, that why can't be engineering college be taught the geography? Similarly, why can't be space engineering be taught at the arts level? Similar way, because everyone don't have to be become a the rocket science person, but there are a lot of work is required to understanding the space, the ground segment, their administration, management, but they must have the fair understanding about how the space technology works. I give the example of Nalsar University of Hyderabad, and it's a very fine law institute, a very premier institute, um, that they are allowing any discipline from any graduate discipline. They come and they pursue their career in the law, and they have a diploma courses. They have another training programs, which allows anyone who walks into they have an interest in law. They can join. Similarly, I think we must open up any engineering college or any other institutions they wanted to adopt non-engineering graduates if they wanted to pursue some of their career in the space sector. I think so it is the innovation of the university which looked into and work on that fashion. It's a very important pillar of in the ecosystem, the academia, because they churn out young minds, innovative minds, the people, the future of the technologies, the future of the industry. They all come from the academic institution. We are also part of academic institution at one point of time. So I think I'm very happy that your announcement to make Shobit University as one of the Center for Excellence, as a bedrock for developing space science and at your university. That's really laudable. And whatever the sport you want, will definitely work out offline. So how do we can nurture further on that direction? So Rajiv, you want to add anything from your side?
So let me, Professor Moni is saying, So you were saying
Rajiv, you
something?
want to add anything?
Yeah.
Mr. Raju Gambhir, you would like to
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
any statement, any final statement, final views?
So, first of all, and again, I would like to thank you again, Professor Moni, Shobit University, and everybody who's listening to this talk for the time. I agree with you. I have a lot of hope on the youth, and I invite them to a journey into space. The pun is intended. We are talking of the businesses and the economy around the space segment, and it's all yours. Thanks. Thanks to the youth of the
Thank you
country.
very much. And, I have circulated MOU copy to Mr. Anil Prakash, and please look into this one. And we
Sure.
will have this MOU, signed between the Soviet Institute of Engineering Technology and, SATCOM Industries Association India. And then let us start program in the diploma level or certificate level, and in association with SATCOM, Industries Association India. That will be the way forward, and it is a takeaway point from this today's present webinar series. And I would like to request both of you to put your thought process in a as a technical paper, and this will become an policy paper to be submitted to the government from the university. It will be
Thank you.
very nice that, because many of the points which you have discussed, it needs large scale, in-depth analysis, and not and once we publish this one, many industries will join with us, and many startups should come as an open API to space tech startups. That this is an important thing. SMEs, startups with young mind, which you said it, and let through that with the technology which they have it, and let them be an edge computing AI for space tech startups, with whatever
Yes.
capabilities they have it. With this, I thank both of you for participating in this important international webinar series, and we will continue to be remain in touch with each of us, and let us develop this academia industry collaboration. Thank you very
Thank
much. With this, I will close the webinar and we will leave the studio. Thank you.
you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Professor.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
the
very
privilege.
much for
It's
the
a privilege.
participants who have participated from India and abroad, and greetings from Soviet University. For more research inquiries, please contact Professor Moni Madaswamy, Professor Emeritus and Chairman, Center for Industry, Informatics Development Solutions and Application, and Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Applications, and former Director General, National Informatics Center, Government of India, New Delhi. My email ID is moni@sovietuniversity.ac.in. We thank the Honorable Chancellor of Soviet Institute of Engineering Technology, Meerut University, and His Excellency, the Secretary General, African Asian Rural Development Organization, New Delhi, for constantly supporting the international webinar series on open source digital technologies towards self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. We will close the webinar and leave.